Hey everybody, this is Jacob from Blind Spectrum, and today we're going to be learning how to use built-in Windows features to make Windows easier to see for low vision individuals. So first thing we're going to cover is the magnifier. You can just type magnifier into the start menu and it'll bring up this little menu. Now you can also use the keyboard shortcut of the Windows key in between Alt and Control on the left side of your keyboard next to the space bar, plus the plus button over on the right hand side of the numpad, and that'll magnify it like that, as well as opening it if it's not already open. And Windows key minus will zoom out. If your keyboard does not have a numpad, like some do, you can just type it into the start menu like I did. And then you can control it using the buttons in the menu here, which will do the same thing. The keyboard shortcuts basically push these buttons here. There's different views that you can use. I prefer full screen myself, but there's also lens, which creates a nice box, which zooms in around things, or zooms in on things inside of the box. And then docked, which when it comes up here, there it is. Okay. We'll make this docked magnifying bar at the top, which follows the cursor along, but it doesn't actually magnify the rest of the screen. And as you can see here, it actually pushed my my recycle bin icon down from where it was before at the top of the screen. You turn back to full screen, and there it is back at the very top. And as you can see, the magnifier menu here will actually follow around where you're zoomed in when you're in full screen, if you'd like to keep it open. So you can put it up here in the corner, move around, and if you need to zoom out, you can, and then zoom back in. It looks like you have to move it back each time, which is slightly irritating. Oh, yeah, that was weird. I just got stuck there. Yeah, so and then if you click that cog, you go into the settings. Typical Windows menu, you have your switch for on-off. Tells you the keyboard shortcuts in here, so the Windows key plus to turn it on, and Windows key escape to turn it off, which do that. Just goes away, and then you just do the keyboard shortcut again, and it comes back. And then it has this here for the plus and the minus inside of this menu as well. You can change the increments at which it zooms in. I have mine at 50%, but default is 100. So you click it once, and it goes from 100 to 200%, and then 300, and so on. I prefer 50, just gives me more control. You can have it start magnifier after you sign in, or even have it start before you sign in. So at the logon screen, it'll have magnifier open. This does do it for everybody, so if you have some sighted friends or family who use your computer as well, this may not be the best option. And I do believe that the keyboard shortcuts do work on the logon screen, so you can always use those. Now, another important feature is the ability to invert colors, which looks like this. Sorry about that. I won't leave that up for more than a second. Basically just switches all the colors to their opposite on the color spectrum. So black becomes white, white becomes black, blue becomes like orange for some reason. I'm not sure how those colors change, but there it is. This is useful for apps and browsers that don't change to high contrast when you have high contrast on in Windows. Right now this is a high contrast mode in Windows. That's why it's the black background with a light text. So I don't need to use that very often. Keyboard shortcut is Control-Alt-I. So pretty useful for quickly changing it without having to go mess around with settings in other apps. And then here we have the view selection as well. You can just change that in the smaller menu without having to come all the way in here. Control-Alt-M will cycle through these different views, and there's also an individual keyboard shortcut, Control-Alt-D for docked, L for lens, and F for full screen. Control-Alt-Spacebar to temporarily show the entire screen when zoomed in. Well, that's interesting. Oh, that's an interesting feature. I'm not sure what it'll be used for, but hey, if you have a use for it, there it is. You can also change what the magnifier follows. I prefer to have it follow my mouse cursor and the text insertion point. This is the mouse cursor, just it moves it when you reach the end of the screen. When you're zoomed in, just has it move over to follow the cursor. It's like your mouse is pushing the screen around a little bit from the inside. Keyboard focus, if you turn that on and you arrow through menus, it'll follow where it is. I just don't like that one. I don't use my keyboard to go through menus like that a lot. And I feel like it would just annoy me to have that happen. Text insertion point will follow whenever you enter a text box. Like if I were to open up Notepad here, see how it jumps over to my Notepad document? And if I was zoomed in enough, it would actually follow and move the screen over. Like say if I did this, if the screen got cut off, like, well, I can't really see this. For an example, we move this all the way over. So like, see how it moves over the magnifier whenever I reach the end of the screen? This is very useful if you're zoomed in and you don't want to have to move your mouse cursor over to follow what you're typing in a Word document, so you can type without having to lose focus and reach over for your mouse. The narrator cursor will make it follow the narrator, which is the Microsoft's built-in screen reader program. So we're not going to be covering in this video. We will have a tutorial video coming out from our AT department on that in the future. So if you're interested in Narrator, keep an eye out for that. And that is it for Magnifier. Go ahead and close that menu. Next up is high contrast. You can just go ahead and type high contrast. Oh, don't get that extra R in there like I did. Into the start menu, and it'll open this menu. Again, you have your on-off switch. Also, you can do Alt left shift plus the print screen button, which on most keyboards is above the six-pack buttons over on the right side to the left of the numpad. I tried using this before I made this video, and it made things a little screwy. It didn't really work all that well, and some of my menus broke while I did that. So I'd recommend just using the on-off switch in here if you need to turn it off. This is a custom theme I made using the background that I downloaded from Microsoft's website, just called Alaskan Landscapes. And so normally when you turn on high contrast, it actually removes your background. So this all would just be a black screen. Well, you can turn it back on by going into backgrounds and just changing the settings to whatever you want. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. Just type in background into the start menu, and normally it'll just go to solid color, and there's a bunch of colors you can choose from, but it just looks like this. It's rather bland, and I mean, if you don't really care what's on your background, that's fine, but I do. I'm on my computer a lot, so I like it to look pretty, so I choose slideshow, and then I used that Alaskan Landscapes, and see that beautiful Alaskan picture. I lost the word for picture there. And I'll go back to high contrast. So again, your background will disappear as soon as you turn on high contrast. And all these settings in here you can change to whatever you feel like. It's just a preference. There's a few built-in ones that Windows has. I would change it, but it just kind of messes with all my settings whenever I do. And I don't want to bore you guys with that. So just whenever you change it, you just have to hit apply. And if you create a new one, it'll ask you to save it, and you have to type in a name. and all that. And if you don't want it, you have to delete it every time, because every time you change a single setting in here, so if I was to change this to a different color, you get this, I can't move that menu. That's annoying. This nice rainbow color selector. Every time if I were to change this at all, I would have to apply it and make a whole new theme. You can't just modify a theme, which I think personally is an oversight. I would prefer to be able to modify a theme versus having to save over and over new ones and then go back and delete several of them. So if you're watching Microsoft, please do that. It's kind of a small thing, but there it is. And that's pretty much it for high contrast. At this point, it's pretty much a preference of how you want your stuff to look. And these colors, like hyperlink and other stuff, does affect most browsers. I know for sure it affects Firefox. All my hyperlinks in Firefox are this nice blue color. You can see disabled text, which is like this button here that you can't press, is red. And so it's just really all down to what you would prefer to see. All right. Next up is how to make just everything on the screen bigger. So just type display into the start menu, and you'll get this menu. You get this nightlight thing up here, which actually doesn't really seem to do much. But anyway, it's not what we're here for. We are here for this setting. Change the size of text, apps, and other items. And 100% is the normal, what it starts off at, the default. And as you can see, this is pretty tiny, especially for us low vision individuals. Luckily, Windows is nice enough to have this option where you can just change it to be bigger. This is 50% normal size, and as you can see, Windows is harassing me whenever I change the setting. And you can go all the way up to 225% default. If you open the advanced settings, you can change it in here, but as you can see, it is not recommended by Windows. I would personally just stick with the built-in predefined sizes in here, just for performance. Doesn't break anything. That's actually that's it for that setting. It's pretty simple. Just makes everything bigger. Although while we are on this subject, if you right-click on the taskbar and click on Taskbar Settings, I don't believe this is checked by default. I've changed it a few times, but the Use Small Taskbar buttons. If you click that, everything becomes tiny. That's pretty hard for me to see, so I keep this unchecked. So if this is checked on your computer by default, I'd recommend unchecking it. And as you can see, it's much nicer when it's not checked. So, and now moving on to the mouse. Now the normal mouse in Windows is fairly small. I mean, this is the one you're seeing on my screen now is the large one. So you just type in mouse into the in the start menu, and then click on additional mouse settings over here on the right hand side. Actually, if you have the menu like this, it'll actually be below, just wherever it is, shows up on your on your screen when you do this. So either onto the right or below the other settings when you open the mouse in the start menu. So you open that up, it'll make a smaller menu here called Mouse Properties. You want to click on the Pointers tab, and then you get this nice long list of different pointers you can use. Inverted. Here's the magnified. Here it is. Okay, here is the default one. As you can see, it's fairly small. It's not terrible, but I prefer the large one. Just much easier for me to see. And then here is the extra large, which is just personally for me is too big. I prefer this large one. And there's some other settings in here for pointer options. You can change how fast it moves, enhance pointer precision. I am not 100% what that does, but there it is. You can turn on this where you press the control key. Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. As a control key, it'll do this, have a pulse into the mouse so you can find it easier. I don't really use that, so I keep it off. Hide pointer while typing that's just a personal preference there. So once you're done, you just hit apply, and then OK. I'm not sure why these are taking so long. Usually they're pretty quick. And that's pretty much it actually for built-in Windows features, and that's actually all I'm using on this computer. Is just the magnifier, high contrast, and changing the size of stuff on the screen and my mouse. And in Windows 10, it's pretty much all you need, depending on how much you need to magnify things. If the only other thing I could recommend is maybe getting zoom text, but Magnifier is pretty much just zoom text with less, fancy bells and whistles. But if you like those bells and whistles, then you're gonna get zoom text. But personally, this is all I need, and I hope that you liked this video and that everything in here can help you use your computer easier, just make computers a more fun and not such a hassle to use. Because I know that before I learned these things, computers were just a pain to me. I didn't want to use them because it was just it was so hard to see things. And once I learned how to do these things, it made computers fun. And I actually went into a career for computers, information technology or IT. And so, especially if you're going to be going into IT as a low vision individual, these are must-have skills, because especially when you go to work on one of your client's computers, they're not going to have zoom text or anything. So knowing how to turn these things on can be extremely useful. So if you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can donate to our Patreon or GoFundMe. All those links will be in the description and on our website at https://blindspectrum.com. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.